morning sun rose over New Haven Colony like any other day. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the main building, watching the mining crews head out to the dig site. The coffee in his metal cup was still hot, and he smiled as he saw children running to school across the settlement square. New Haven was a good place to live. 50,000 people had made their home on this world at the edge of known space. The planet had clean air, fresh water, and rich mineral deposits that made everyone wealthy. Families came here for a better life, far from the crowded cities of Earth. Jake had been the colony's security chief for 3 years now. His job was mostly easy. Sometimes miners got drunk and started fights. Sometimes teenagers broke windows or stole food from the market. Nothing serious ever happened on New Haven. That changed at exactly 9:37 in the morning. The communication device on his belt crackled to life. "Chief Morrison, we need you at Dig Site 7 right away." The voice belonged to Ryan Bell, the head of mining operations. He sounded worried. Jake finished his coffee and walked to his vehicle. The ride to Dig Site 7 took 20 minutes through the forest. New Haven had thick woods filled with small animals and colorful birds. The colonists had built their towns to fit around the trees, not cut them down. When Jake reached the dig site, he saw Ryan standing next to a large hole in the ground. The mining machines had stopped working. A dozen workers stood around looking, nervous. "What's the problem?" Jake asked as he got out of his vehicle. Ryan pointed down into the hole. "We found something big." Jake looked down. At the bottom of the hole, 30 feet below ground, was a metal structure. It was smooth and black, about the size of a small building. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with a soft blue light. "How long has it been glowing?" Jake asked. "Started about an hour ago," Ryan said. "Right after we broke through, the rock layer above it." Dr. Lisa Harper arrived in her research vehicle. She was the colony's expert on alien life and old technology. Lisa was a small woman with gray hair who always carried a bag full of scientific tools. "Nobody touch anything," she said as she climbed down into the hole. "This could be dangerous." Lisa spent 2 hours studying the metal structure. She took pictures and measurements. She used her tools to scan the symbols and the glowing lights. Jake and the workers waited above ground. Finally, Lisa climbed back up. Her face was pale. "This is definitely alien technology," she said. "Very old, maybe thousands of years. The symbols match some we've found on other worlds, but these are more complex." "Is it dangerous?" Jake asked. "I don't know. The energy readings are increasing. Something is happening inside." Before anyone could respond, the ground shook. A low humming sound came from the hole. The blue glow grew brighter. "Everyone back to your vehicles," Jake ordered. "We're leaving now." But it was too late. The metal structure exploded upward out of the hole. Dirt and rocks flew everywhere. The workers ran for cover behind trees and machines. Jake grabbed Lisa and pulled her behind his vehicle. When the dust settled, they looked back at the hole. The metal structure was gone. In its place stood something that made Jake's blood turn cold. The creature was 12 feet tall and covered in thick, dark armor that looked like the shell of a giant insect. It had 4 arms, each ending in claws as long as kitchen knives. Its head was shaped like a wolf's but larger, with yellow eyes that glowed with intelligence. When it opened its mouth, they could see rows of sharp teeth. The creature looked around slowly, studying its surroundings. Its yellow eyes focused on the humans hiding behind vehicles and trees. Jake could see it thinking, planning. One of the miners, a young man named Pete, panicked. He jumped up from behind a tree and ran toward his vehicle. The creature moved faster than anything Jake had ever seen. In 3 long steps, it caught Pete before he reached safety. What happened next would give Jake nightmares for the rest of his life. The creature didn't just kill Pete. It studied him first, like a scientist examining a specimen. Then it tore him apart with careful, deliberate movements. When it was finished, it looked at the other humans again. Jake could see something terrible in those yellow eyes. This wasn't just a wild animal. It was intelligent, and it was enjoying what it had done. "Everyone stay down," Jake whispered into his radio. "Don't move, don't make any noise." The creature walked around the dig site, examining the machines and vehicles. It used one claw to cut through the metal hull of a mining robot like it was made of paper. Then it did something that terrified Jake even more than the killing. It started learning. The creature spent several minutes studying the mining robot's parts. It figured out how the machine worked. It understood that these were tools made by intelligent beings. Jake watched it pick up a piece of the robot's computer and examine the wires inside. This thing was smart. Very smart. After an hour, the creature seemed to lose interest in the dig site. It looked toward the forest in the direction of the main colony. Then it started walking. Jake waited until the creature was out of sight before he and the others came out of hiding. 3 people besides Pete were dead. The creature had killed them silently, while everyone else was focused on Pete's death. "Get to the vehicles," Jake said. "We need to warn the colony." They drove back to New Haven as fast as possible. Jake used his radio to call the main office. "This is Chief Morrison. We have an emergency situation. I need all security teams to report immediately, and get me Commander Wade." Susan Wade was the colony's military commander. She was in charge of the small defense force that protected New Haven from pirates and other threats. When Jake reached the main building, she was already waiting in the command center with her officers. "Tell me what happened," Susan said. Jake described the creature and what it had done. As he talked, Susan's face grew more serious. "How many weapons do we have?" Jake asked. 50 plasma rifles, 10 heavy cannons, and about 1,000 rounds of ammunition," Susan replied. "Plus the defensive shields around the main buildings." "Will that be enough?" Susan was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. From what you've described, this thing is unlike anything we've faced before." Dr. Harper entered the command center carrying her computer. "I've been researching similar creatures in the Galactic database," she said. "I found something." She showed them a file on her screen. It contained pictures of creatures that looked similar to the one they had encountered. "These are called Warbeasts," Lisa explained. "They were created by an ancient race called the Vorthak. The Vorthak used them as weapons in their wars. According to these records, a single Warbeast could destroy entire cities." "What happened to the Vorthak?" Susan asked. "They disappeared about 5,000 years ago. Nobody knows why. But they left these weapons behind, buried on worlds throughout the galaxy." Jake felt sick. "So we accidentally woke up an ancient weapon?" "It appears so," Lisa said. "And according to these files, Warbeasts are programmed to kill all life forms they encounter. They don't stop until everything is dead." An alarm started ringing. One of Susan's officers looked up from his communication station. "We're getting reports from the eastern settlements," he said. "Something is attacking the farms out there." The creature had reached the colony. The killing had begun. Jake looked out the window toward the eastern farms. In the distance, he could see smoke rising from burning buildings. The Warbeast was loose among his people, and he had no idea how to stop it. The emergency sirens wailed across New Haven Colony. Jake Morrison stood in the command center watching red dots appear on the tactical display. Each dot represented an attack. Each dot meant more people were dying. "Eastern farms are gone," reported Officer Mike Torres from his communication station. "No survivors responding." Susan Wade studied the map with grim concentration. The creature was moving in a pattern, hitting the outer settlements first and working its way toward the main colony. It wasn't random killing. It was systematic. "How long until it reaches the residential areas?" Susan asked. Dr. Harper checked her calculations on her computer. "At its current speed, maybe 6 hours." Jake grabbed his plasma rifle and checked the power cell. "We need to evacuate everyone to the main compound. The shields there are strongest." "Already started," Susan said. "But we have 50,000 people spread across the colony. It will take time to get everyone to safety." The radio crackled with panicked voices. Families were loading their vehicles and heading for the main compound. But some people lived too far away. Some wouldn't make it in time. Helen Parker worked at the colony hospital as a nurse. When the alarm started, she was in the middle of treating a patient with a broken arm. Now she was packing medical supplies while her 8-year-old son Danny sat quietly in the corner. Danny hadn't spoken much since they arrived on New Haven 2 months ago. The move from Earth had been hard on him. He missed his grandfather back home, and he missed Rex, their big German shepherd dog that had to stay behind. "Mommy, what's happening?" Danny asked, holding tight to a small wooden carving of a dog that his grandfather had made for him. "We need to go to the safe building," Helen said, trying to keep her voice calm. "There's a dangerous animal loose and we'll be safer with everyone else." Danny nodded and followed his mother out of the hospital. Outside, the streets were full of people and vehicles all heading in the same direction. Everyone looked scared. In the school, teacher Bob Collins was helping children get on evacuation buses. The kids were frightened and crying, some were calling for their parents. "Stay together," Bob told his students. "We're going on a special trip to the big building. It will be like camping indoors." 8-year-old Lucy Martin raised her hand. "Mr. Collins, why is everyone scared?" Bob knelt down to her level. "Sometimes grown-ups have to deal with difficult things, but we'll all be safe together." The first bus loaded with children was driving toward the main compound when the creature attacked it. The Warbeast came out of the forest like a nightmare. It moved faster than the bus could drive. With one swipe of its massive claws, it tore through the vehicle's armor plating. The bus crashed into a tree. Bob Collins jumped off the second bus and ran toward the wreckage. Inside the first bus, children were screaming and crying. Some were hurt from the crash, but most were just terrified. The creature stood over the broken bus, studying it. Its yellow eyes looked through the windows at the children inside. Bob could see it thinking, planning its next move. Without hesitation, Bob stepped between the creature and the bus full of children. "Hey!" he shouted, waving his arms. "Over here!" The Warbeast turned its attention to him. Bob was a small man, barely 5.5 feet tall. The creature towered over him like a mountain of teeth and claws. "Run!" Bob yelled to the children. "Get out and run to the other bus." The children obeyed their teacher. They climbed out through the emergency exits and ran as fast as they could. Bob kept the creature's attention focused on him, backing away slowly to give the kids time to escape. The Warbeast studied Bob with those intelligent yellow eyes. It seemed curious about this small human who dared to face it. Bob could see the creature learning, figuring out human behavior patterns. When the last child reached safety, Bob turned to run. But the creature was faster. It caught him in 3 quick steps. Bob Collins died so that 26 children could live. His sacrifice gave them the time they needed to reach the second bus and escape to the main compound. News of the attack spread quickly through the colony. Jake Morrison organized search and rescue teams to help other evacuation groups reach safety, but the creature was learning from each encounter. At the northern mining station, security guard Carlos Green saw the Warbeast approaching. Carlos had military training from his time in the Colonial Defense Force. He set up a defensive position behind some heavy equipment and waited. When the creature came into range, Carlos opened fire with his plasma rifle. The energy bolts hit the Warbeast directly in the chest, but instead of falling down, the creature just staggered back a few steps. Its thick armor had absorbed most of the damage. The Warbeast looked at Carlos with what seemed like interest. It had never been shot before. Now it was learning what human weapons could do. Carlos fired again and again until his power cell was empty. The creature's armor showed some burn marks, but no serious damage. It walked toward Carlos like the weapons were just an annoyance. Carlos grabbed a second rifle from his equipment locker. But before he could fire, the creature did something that terrified him. It picked up a large piece of metal debris and threw it with perfect accuracy. The metal struck Carlos in the chest and knocked him to the ground. The Warbeast had learned to use tools as weapons. By evening, thousands of colonists had reached the safety of the main compound. The building was designed to withstand attacks from space pirates and other threats. Its energy shields could stop most weapons, and its walls were made of the strongest materials. Jake stood in the command center looking at the tactical display. Red dots marked the locations of attacks throughout the day. The pattern was clear now. The creature was testing their defenses, learning their capabilities. "How many people are still outside the compound?" he asked. "About 15,000, Susan replied. "Most are in the outer settlements." Some chose to stay in their homes instead of evacuating. Dr. Harper looked up from her research computer. I've been studying the attack patterns. This creature is definitely intelligent. It's not just killing randomly, it's conducting a systematic campaign. What do you mean? Jake asked. Look at the targets, Lisa said, pointing to the map. First, it hit the isolated farms to test human response times. Then it attacked the school bus to see what weapons we would use. Next, it went after the mining station to learn about our defensive capabilities. Susan nodded grimly. It's gathering intelligence, and each time it adapts its tactics, Lisa continued. When Carlos shot at it, the creature learned to use thrown objects as weapons. It's not just strong and fast, it's smart, enough to develop new strategies. Jake studied the map. The attacks had formed a rough circle around the main compound. The creature was testing their perimeter, looking for weak points. How long can our shields hold? He asked. Ryan Bell, the engineering chief, consulted his instruments. The power generators can maintain full shields for maybe 72 hours. After that, we'll have to reduce power to conserve energy. And if the shields fail? Ryan was quiet for a moment. Then we're in serious trouble. The compound's walls are strong, but not strong enough to stop something like that creature. Outside the compound, the Warbeast moved through the empty streets of New Haven. It had learned much about these humans during the day. They were weak individually, but they worked together in groups. They had weapons, but not powerful enough to seriously hurt it. They cared about their young enough to sacrifice themselves to protect children. All of this information would be useful when it began the final assault. The creature found a tall building near the compound and climbed to the roof. From there, it could see the energy shields glowing around the main structure. Inside those shields were the remaining humans. All it had to do was find a way through the defenses. The Warbeast settled down to watch and wait. It had time. The humans were trapped, and eventually their shields would fail. When that happened, it would finish what it had started. In the compound's medical bay, Helen Parker was treating injured evacuees. Her son Danny sat nearby, still holding his wooden dog carving. The boy watched the adults rushing around, all of them looking worried and scared. Danny had seen the creature on the security monitors. It reminded him of something, but he couldn't figure out what. Something about the way it moved, the way it looked at things. It was familiar, like a memory he couldn't quite reach. Outside, the Warbeast continued its patient vigil. The hunt would continue soon. The compound's shields flickered for the first time at dawn on the second day. Jake Morrison watched the energy readings on his display screen and felt his stomach drop. They were losing power faster than expected. How much time do we have left? He asked Ryan Bell. The engineering chief wiped sweat from his forehead. Maybe 18 hours before the shields fail completely. The creature's been testing them all night, forcing us to use more power. Outside the shields, the Warbeast had spent the dark hours learning about their defenses. It threw rocks and pieces of metal at the energy barrier, watching how the shields responded. Each impact drained a little more power from their generators. Susan Wade stood at the tactical station studying reports from the perimeter guards. It's getting smarter. Last night it figured out that hitting the shield generators directly uses more power than hitting the walls. Jake looked at the security monitors showing the area around the compound. The creature was nowhere to be seen, but they all knew it was out there somewhere, watching and planning. Where are our reinforcements? Jake asked. The nearest Federation patrol is still 5 days away, Susan replied. We sent the distress signal, but help won't arrive in time. Dr. Harper entered the command center carrying her research computer and looking exhausted. She had been working all night, trying to find some weakness in the creature's design. Found more information about the Warbeasts, she said. The good news is that there's only one on the planet. The bad news is that one is designed to be enough. What do you mean? Jake asked. Lisa showed them files on her computer screen. The Vorthak created these creatures to be perfect weapons. Each Warbeast was programmed to study its enemies and adapt its tactics. They were designed to work alone because they didn't need help. How did the Vorthak control them? Susan asked. That's what I've been trying to figure out, Lisa said. The records are incomplete, but it looks like the Vorthak had some kind of command system. Without it, the Warbeasts just follow their basic programming. Which is to kill everything, Jake said. Exactly. A new alarm started ringing. Officer Torres looked up from his communication station with fear in his eyes. The creature just attacked the water treatment plant, he reported. It's not trying to get inside, it's destroying our infrastructure. Jake understood immediately. The Warbeast wasn't just trying to break through their defenses anymore. It was planning to make the compound uninhabitable. Without water, they would have to surrender or die of thirst. Smart, Susan said grimly. It's learning siege tactics. Over the next few hours, the creature systematically destroyed the colony's essential systems. It tore apart the communication array, cutting off their contact with the outside world. It damaged the power lines leading to the compound, forcing them to rely entirely on the backup generators inside the shields. The Warbeast moved with purpose and intelligence, always staying out of range of their weapons. When security teams tried to leave the compound to stop it, the creature would appear suddenly and attack them before disappearing again. Matt Rodriguez led the compound security force. He was a tough man who had served in the colonial military for 20 years. Matt had fought pirates and hostile aliens, but nothing had prepared him for this enemy. We need to hit it hard and fast, Matt told his team of 12 security officers. If we can hurt it badly enough, maybe it will retreat. They planned their attack carefully. The creature had been seen near the main power station outside the compound. If they could surround it and use all their heavy weapons at once, they might have a chance. Matt's team left the compound through the emergency exit tunnel. They moved quickly through the empty streets, carrying plasma rifles and explosive charges. The plan was to trap the creature between two groups and hit it from both sides, but the Warbeast was waiting for them. It had learned to predict human tactical thinking. When Matt's team reached the power station, the creature was already in position, on a rooftop above them. It had turned the hunters into the hunted. The attack came without warning. The Warbeast dropped from the roof like a falling boulder, landing in the middle of Matt's team. Its claws moved faster than the human eye could follow. Officer Jenny Price fired her plasma rifle at point-blank range. The energy bolt burned through the creature's armor and left a smoking wound on its side. For a moment, Matt thought they had hurt it badly. Then the Warbeast grabbed Jenny and threw her 30 feet into a concrete wall. The sound of breaking bones echoed through the empty street. "Fall back," Matt shouted. "Everyone retreat to the compound." But the creature had planned for that too. It herded the security team away from the compound, using its speed and agility to cut off their escape routes. One by one, Matt's people fell to the Warbeast's claws and teeth. Officer Sam Davis tried to use an explosive charge to bring down a building on the creature. The explosion shook the ground and filled the air with dust and debris. For a few seconds, Matt hoped they had buried the Warbeast under tons of concrete. Then the creature emerged from the rubble, shaking dust from its armored hide. The explosion had barely slowed it down. Matt found himself alone, facing the Warbeast, in a narrow alley between two buildings. His rifle was empty and his team was dead. He had one grenade left on his belt. "Come on then," he said, pulling the pin from the grenade. "Let's finish this." The creature studied him with those intelligent yellow eyes. It could have killed Matt easily, but instead it seemed curious about this human who refused to run away. Matt held the grenade and walked toward the Warbeast. If he could get close enough, he might be able to hurt it badly with the explosion. He took one step, then another. The creature moved faster than thought. One claw struck Matt's hand, sending the grenade flying harmlessly away. Another claw opened his throat before he could cry out. Matt Rodriguez died knowing that his sacrifice had bought the compound a few more hours. His team's attack had shown the creature's weaknesses, even if they couldn't exploit them. Back in the compound, Jake watched the security monitors as the Warbeast returned to its patient stalking. The shields were getting weaker, their water supplies were running low, and now their best security team was gone. "We can't fight this thing with conventional tactics," Susan said. "It's too smart. It learns from every attack." Dr. Harper was studying footage of the failed assault. "Look at this," she said, pointing to her screen. When Officer Price shot it, the creature seemed surprised by the pain. It's been hit by plasma fire before, but that shot actually hurt it. "So our weapons can damage it," Jake said. "Under the right circumstances, yes. But it learns quickly. Next time it won't make the same mistake. In the medical bay, Helen Parker was treating the few injured people who had made it back from various rescue attempts. Her son Danny sat nearby, watching everything with quiet attention. The boy had been studying the security footage too, though the adults didn't know it. He spent hours watching the creature move and hunt. Something about its behavior reminded him of Rex, his grandfather's German shepherd back on Earth. Danny remembered how Rex would patrol the yard at his grandfather's house, checking the fence line and marking his territory. The dog was big and strong, but he was also smart. Rex could learn new tricks quickly and remember them forever. But Rex wasn't mean. He was protective. He only got aggressive when he thought the family was in danger, or when strangers came too close to the house. Danny watched the Warbeast on the monitor screen. It was sitting perfectly still on a rooftop looking toward the compound. Its posture reminded Danny of how Rex would sit when he was watching for intruders. "Mommy," Danny said quietly, "what if the monster isn't really bad?" Helen looked at her son with surprise. "What do you mean, honey?" "What if it's just scared and confused, like Rex was when we first got him from the animal shelter?" Helen knelt down beside Danny's chair. "This isn't like Rex, sweetheart. This creature is very dangerous." But Danny kept watching the monitors. The more he observed the Warbeast, the more it reminded him of a guard dog that had lost its family. A dog that didn't understand who it was supposed to protect anymore. Outside, the creature continued its vigil. The shields around the compound grew weaker with each passing hour. Soon, it would be time for the final attack. The shields around the compound flickered and died at 3 a.m. on the third day. Jake Morrison watched the energy readings drop to 0 and felt his heart sink. They had run out of time. "Emergency power to the blast doors," Ryan Bell shouted to his engineering team. "Seal all entrances. Switch to backup life support." The compound's thick metal walls were their last defense, but everyone knew the walls wouldn't stop the Warbeast for long. They had seen what its claws could, to metal and concrete. Susan Wade stood at the tactical station checking her weapons one last time. "All remaining security personnel to defensive positions," she announced over the communication system. "This is not a drill." 23 people were left in the security force. They had started with over 100 trained fighters. The rest had died trying to stop the creature during the past 3 days. Dr. Harper sat at her computer, still searching for answers in the ancient files about the Vorthak and their warbeasts. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she refused to give up. "There has to be something," she muttered to herself. "Some way to stop it or control it." Outside the compound, the Warbeast circled the building like a predator studying its prey. With the shields gone, it could smell the humans inside. Fear had a distinct scent, and the creature could taste it in the air. The first attack came at the main entrance. The Warbeast's claws scraped against the blast doors, testing their strength. The sound echoed through the compound like fingernails on glass, making everyone inside shiver with terror. Jake positioned his remaining security team in the main corridor leading from the entrance. If the creature broke through, they would make their stand there. "Remember," he told his people, "aim for the wound that Officer Price made on its side. That's the only place our weapons seem to hurt it." The blast doors groaned under the Warbeast's assault. The metal was thick and strong, but the creature was patient. It worked methodically, using its claws to cut through the reinforced steel bit by bit. In the medical bay, Helen Parker held her son Danny close as they listened to the sounds of the creature trying to break in. Other families huddled together. In the safe room, parents whispering comfort to frightened children. Danny wasn't scared like the other kids. He was thinking. He had spent 3 days watching the Warbeast on the security monitors, studying its behavior patterns. The creature reminded him more and more of Rex, his grandfather's German shepherd. Rex had been a military dog before Danny's grandfather adopted him. The big dog was trained to be aggressive toward enemies, but he was gentle with his family. Rex knew the difference between friend and foe because he had been taught the difference. Danny wondered if anyone had ever taught the Warbeast who its friends were supposed to be. The boy slipped away from his mother while she was busy helping injured people. He found a computer terminal that still had access to the security cameras. On the screen, he could see the creature working at the blast doors. The Warbeast's movements were careful and precise. It wasn't attacking in rage or hunger. It was solving a problem, using its intelligence to overcome an obstacle. Just like Rex would do when he wanted to get through a gate or door. Danny thought about the stories his grandfather had told him about training military dogs. The most important thing was establishing pack leadership. Dogs needed to know who was in charge. Without a clear leader, they became confused and sometimes dangerous. Maybe the Warbeast was just a confused dog that had lost its pack leader. The blast doors finally gave way with a screech of tearing metal. The Warbeast pulled the heavy doors, apart like they were made of paper. Emergency lights bathed the entrance in red light as the creature stepped inside. Jake and his security team opened fire immediately. Plasma bolts lit up the corridor as they aimed for the wounded spot on the creature's side. Several shots hit their target, burning deeper into the existing wound. The Warbeast staggered but didn't fall. Instead, it seemed to get angry for the first time since they had encountered it. Its yellow eyes blazed with fury as it charged down the corridor toward the humans. The security team scattered, firing as they moved. But the creature was too fast and too smart. It had learned their tactics from previous encounters. It knew exactly how to counter their movements. Officer Tony Nash tried to flank the Warbeast from a side corridor. The creature sensed him coming and grabbed him before he could fire. Tony's scream echoed through the compound as the Warbeast's claws found their mark. Jake fell back toward the main safe room where the civilians were hiding. His team was being destroyed, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The Warbeast was simply too powerful and too intelligent for them to defeat. Susan Wade made a desperate decision. She activated the compound's self-destruct system, hoping to take the creature down with them. But when she tried to enter the activation code, the computer refused to respond. The Warbeast had somehow damaged the system during its assault on the outer defenses. "The self-destruct isn't working," she told Jake over the radio. "We're on our own." Dr. Harper looked up from her computer with sudden excitement. "I found something," she shouted. "The control system for the Warbeasts. It's based on pack hierarchy, just like social animals on Earth." "What does that mean?" Jake asked as he retreated down another corridor. "The Vorthak controlled their Warbeasts by establishing dominance," Lisa explained quickly. The creatures were programmed to respond to authority figures who displayed the right behavioral cues. "How do we establish dominance over something that big?" Susan asked. "I don't know," Lisa admitted. "The files don't explain the specific techniques." The Warbeast had cleared the main corridor and was moving deeper into the compound. Its yellow eyes scanned each room, looking for the remaining humans. It could smell them, hear their breathing, sense their fear. Jake found himself cornered in a storage room with 3 other security officers. The Warbeast appeared in the doorway, filling the entire opening with its massive form. This was the end, but before the creature could attack, a small voice called out from behind it. "Hey!" The Warbeast turned around, confused. Standing in the corridor was an 8-year-old boy holding a wooden carving of a dog. Danny Parker had left the safe room and walked through the compound to find the creature. "Danny, get back," Jake shouted. "Run!" But Danny didn't run. He stood perfectly still, looking up at the Warbeast with calm, steady eyes. The creature stared down at this smallest of humans, tilting its head like a puzzled animal. Helen Parker came running down the corridor, having discovered her son was missing. "Danny, come here right now." The Warbeast's attention shifted between the boy and the woman. For the first time since its awakening, the creature seemed uncertain about what to do. Danny held up his wooden dog carving so the Warbeast could see it. "You're lost, aren't you?" he said in a quiet, gentle voice. "You don't know who you're supposed to protect?" The creature leaned down, bringing its massive head closer to the boy. Its yellow eyes studied the wooden carving with what looked like curiosity. "My grandpa had a dog like you," Danny continued. "Rex was big and strong, and sometimes people were scared of him. But Rex wasn't mean. He just wanted to do his job." The Warbeast made a sound that was almost like a whimper. For just a moment, its fierce expression softened. Danny took a step closer to the creature. Everyone else held their breath, expecting the boy to be killed instantly. But the Warbeast didn't move. It just watched the child with those intelligent, yellow eyes. "You need someone to tell you what to do, don't you?" Danny said. "You need a pack leader." The boy thought about all the times he had watched his grandfather work with Rex, how his grandfather's voice would change when he gave the dog commands, how he would stand straight and tall, showing Rex that he was in charge. Danny straightened his shoulders and looked directly into the Warbeast's eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried the same authority his grandfather had used with Rex, the voice of someone who expected to be obeyed. "Sit," Danny said. Time seemed to stop. The Warbeast stared at the small boy who had just given it a command. Its programming warred with itself, ancient behavioral patterns clashing with its destructive mission. Then, slowly, impossibly, the massive creature lowered its haunches to the floor. The Warbeast was sitting. The corridor was completely silent. Everyone stared at the massive Warbeast sitting on the floor like an obedient dog. Its yellow eyes were focused on Danny Parker, waiting for the next command. Jake Morrison could hardly believe what he was seeing. This 8-year-old boy had just accomplished what their entire military force could not do. He had stopped the unstoppable killing machine with a single word. "Good boy," Danny said softly, using the same gentle tone his grandfather had always used with Rex. "Stay." The Warbeast remained perfectly still. Its tail, which Jake hadn't even noticed before, gave a small twitch. The creature was actually responding like a trained animal. Helen Parker stood frozen in the hallway, afraid that any movement might break whatever spell her son had cast over the monster. She wanted to grab Danny and pull him to safety, but she could see that the boy was in complete control of the situation. Dr. Harper slowly approached, her computer in her hands. She was recording everything, documenting this incredible moment for science and history. "How did you know it would work?" she whispered to Danny. "It reminded me of Rex," Danny replied without taking his eyes off the Warbeast. "Rex was a good dog, but sometimes he got confused when my grandpa wasn't there to tell him what to do." The boy took another step closer to the creature. Its massive head followed his movement, but it remained sitting as commanded. "You're not a bad monster," Danny said to the Warbeast. "You're just lost. You woke up and didn't know where your family was." Susan Wade watched from the tactical station, her weapon still ready but no longer needed. She spoke quietly into her radio to the remaining security personnel. "Stand down," she ordered. "Do not fire unless I give the direct command. The situation is under control." Danny reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of food from his lunch. It was just a small piece of bread, but he offered it to the Warbeast with an open palm. "Here," he said. "Are you hungry?" The creature leaned its massive head down and sniffed the bread. Very gently, it took the food from Danny's hand using just the tip of its tongue. The boy giggled softly. "He has good manners," Danny said to his mother, "just like Rex." Over the next hour, Danny continued to work with the Warbeast using simple commands. He told it to stand, and it stood. He told it to lie down, and it lowered its body to the floor. Each command was obeyed immediately. Dr. Harper was furiously taking notes on her computer. "The behavioral patterns match perfectly with pack animal psychology," she explained to Jake. "The creature was programmed by the Vorthak to respond to alpha leadership. Without proper guidance, it defaulted to its basic mission of eliminating threats." "But why does it obey Danny?" Jake asked. "He's just a child." "That might be exactly why it works," Lisa replied. "Children don't show fear the same way adults do." Danny approached the creature with confidence and authority, not aggression. He treated it like a confused animal instead of a monster. Ryan Bell arrived with his engineering team to assess the damage to the compound. The blast doors would need to be repaired, and several systems had been damaged during the siege. But they were all alive, and that was what mattered most. "What do we do with it now?" Ryan asked, looking nervously at the Warbeast. Danny heard the question and looked up at the adults. "Can we keep him?" he asked his mother. "He doesn't have anywhere else to go." Helen knelt down beside her son. "Honey, this isn't like adopting a stray cat. This creature is very dangerous." But he's not dangerous when someone tells him what to do, Danny pointed out. Rex was the same way. He just needed a job and someone to take care of him. Jake considered their options. The creature had killed dozens of people during its 3-day rampage. By all rights, it should be destroyed. But it was also an incredible scientific discovery, and now it seemed to be under control. We'll need to contact the Galactic Federation, he decided. This is way above our authority level. 2 weeks later, a Federation science ship arrived at New Haven Colony. The team was led by Dr. Amanda Cross, a specialist in xenobiology and ancient alien technology. She had come to study the Warbeast and determine what should be done with it. During those 2 weeks, Danny had continued working with the creature every day. He taught it more commands and even gave it a name, Bear, because it was big and brown like the teddy bear he used to have on Earth. Bear had learned to be helpful around the colony. It could lift heavy objects that would take dozens of humans to move. It could clear fallen trees from roads with a single swipe of its claws, and most importantly, it seemed genuinely happy to have a purpose again. Dr. Cross spent several days observing the interaction between Danny and Bear. She ran tests and took measurements, trying to understand how a human child had bonded with an ancient alien weapon. This is unprecedented, she told Jake during one of their meetings. The creature shows complete loyalty to the boy. It won't even eat unless Danny gives it permission. So what happens now? Jake asked. The Federation. Council is very interested in this case, Dr. Cross replied. If we can learn to communicate with other warbeasts that might be discovered, it could prevent future tragedies. She turned to Danny, who was sitting nearby with Bear's massive head resting in his lap. Danny, would you be willing to help us? Learn more about how to work with creatures like Bear? The boy looked up with bright eyes. You mean like a job? Exactly like a job. We would train you to be a human Vorthak interpreter. You would help us communicate with any other warbeasts we might find. Danny looked at his mother for permission. Helen smiled and nodded. Can Bear come with me? Danny asked. I think Bear would be very unhappy without you, Dr. Cross said. Yes, he can come. 6 months later, Danny Parker became the youngest official consultant in Federation history. He and Bear traveled to 3 different worlds where warbeasts had been accidentally awakened. In each case, Danny was able to establish communication and control using the same techniques that had worked on New Haven. The boy who had grown up missing his grandfather's dog had found a new purpose in life. He had discovered that sometimes the biggest problems could be solved with the simplest solutions. Bear was no longer a warbeast. He was a guardian, protector, and friend. He had found his pack again, and his pack leader was a gentle 8-year-old boy who understood that every creature just wanted to belong somewhere. On New Haven Colony, life returned to normal. The population rebuilt what had been destroyed and continued their peaceful existence at the edge of known space. But everyone remembered the 3 days of terror and the miracle that ended them. Children would often ask their parents to tell them the story of the boy who stopped a monster with a single word. And parents would remind them that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from weapons or violence, but from understanding and compassion. Jake Morrison kept his job as security chief, but he added new training to his program. All security personnel now learned basic animal psychology and behavioral communication techniques. The lesson of Danny and Bear had taught them that there were better ways to solve problems than just shooting at them. Dr. Harper published her research on Vorthak warbeasts and became one of the galaxy's leading experts on ancient alien psychology. Her work helped establish new protocols for dealing with discovered alien artifacts. And in the colony's main square, they built a small statue showing a boy and a large creature sitting together peacefully. The inscription read, "Sometimes the smallest voice speaks the loudest truth." Danny Parker had proven that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or firepower. It was the ability to see past fear and find the connection that exists between all living beings. He had shown that even the most frightening monsters might just be lost souls looking for someone to guide them home. The warbeast that had defied all the galaxy's military might now sat patiently by a child's side, waiting for the next command from the pack leader who had spoken one simple word with perfect understanding. Sit.